You know what? I think I'm on the record as saying I think the point system still needs work. I think the regional champ, there's been a lot of good progress, but I still think it needs work. You know, the goal is to have the best athletes in their best shape on the start line in the World Championships, and I think you need to work backwards from there and structure the whole system around that. I do think that a system where the best athletes race more often for deeper prize money is probably the way to go. That's what you see in other sports. There should be no easy prize checks, no easy paydays. It's professional sport, it's tough. Not only I think is important, I think it's necessary. It's part of your development as a professional athlete. You need to toughen up mentally, and the way you develop that hardness is to race the best more often. And I don't think you do athletes any favours by having easy paydays, and people might disagree and say, well, we need to sustain the professionals. Well, the professionals need to get to a level where they can win the money and sustain themselves. You know, I came from that. You know, I started in the sport where, in the mid-90s, where Greg Welsh, Brad Bevan and Miles Stewart were winning everything. And then you had a second tier and a third tier and a fourth tier. You know what, if you were not on the top tier, and there was only 3 on the top tier, those 3 guys, you had to get there. Otherwise you're going out to get a job. That's sport. I think from a marketing standpoint, there's no point having diluted fields for limited prize money. You know, I think if there's the demand there to put a race on, which obviously there is, because, you know, Ironman and Challenge are adding races annually around the globe, and they're selling out, which means the demand is there. So I think as a sport we need to meet that demand for sure. But that doesn't mean there has to be a pro category at every race. So I think the powers that be need to sit down, and maybe the race directors can bid for it each year. So, you know what, one year we don't want a pro category, we might have some pros come as ambassadors. Other years, yeah, we think it adds to the race by having a pro category. It might bring some more media. But as a sport, I think we certainly need to be more thoughtful about that. It just dilutes the whole product. No one's entitled to make a living. You have to earn a living. You have to, it's part of being a professional. And you know, when I speak to young athletes, some of them said, oh, it's easy for you to say, you know, look where you are. I'm like, well, look where I came from, though. I mean, arguably one of the toughest eras, you know, as I said, you know, Greg, Brad and Miles, plus we had Lessing out there all the time, Spencer Smith, Hamish Carter. I mean, we had world champions. They were growing on trees and they were racing in Australia all the time. Jan Rahula, Simon Whitfield, the list goes on. Bevan Doherty. So you have to find a way to compete and improve. It's not incumbent on the sport to pay you a living. It's not their responsibility. Certainly, you know, I often wonder, how can we take the sport to the next level? And part of that is the organisation, obviously, but a big part of it is the athletes performing, you know, taking their performances to the next level, having the big names, the marquee names racing when there is media, and putting on a great show. I mean, that's ultimately, when you're talking about the business of sport, you're talking about entertainment and great racing. And like you alluded to, having the biggest names race more often for bigger prize purses, that probably is the solution, because I think that will filter down through the rest of the sport. Yeah, so a lot of thought needs to go into it. I'm still not 100% sold on the qualification process and the points and the weights, because, yeah, I think with any system that you put in play, certain scenarios arise that you never would have thought of until actually, and then it's a matter of troubleshooting and I guess finessing it along the way. So I think it's always open for discussion, absolutely, but I definitely think what you suggested is the way we need to go at the professional end of the sport. There's no point having, you know, just because there's 100 races, having 100 pro fields. I don't think we have the numbers and the quality to sustain a great race at each one of those. So maybe we need to get to more of a system like what golf has. So, but anyway, always good to discuss these things, and you know, there's a lot of people involved in the sport, whether it be racing or in an organisational capacity, who have a lot of experience and hopefully have the best interests of the sport at heart and will make the right decisions.
But we're just seeing with the way the ITU structures the WTS, that just seems like a model that is worth investigating and worth pursuing.
No, absolutely. I think they've hit something. I mean, those races are super competitive. always entertaining and good to watch. And I think the flow-on effect is people are interested. You direct eyeballs towards them then, which leads on to other things. Obviously marketing and sponsorship, and then that money filters down through the sport. And the whole sport benefits, whether it be the professionals, the amateurs, or the grassroots, the juniors. So yeah, I think that the ITU have a great model for sure. And you know, the last few years, the way they've streamlined it, having a grand final as well. And yeah, no, it's something worth looking at.